All right. Hello, everyone. I'm Nils, Councilman Narenheim, and I'm here with David Rosenfeld on the second tour historic walk. And I wanted to do a quick video to show off the tour, say hi to David, thank him for it, but go back to history of the history walk, how he came across of it, and I thought it was really cool, by the way.
Thank you.
I mean, it was an hour of walking through here, the history that you have, and I just kept looking everywhere and thinking, there's so much more history everywhere here.
Yeah.
You did a great job. So first question, give a quick 30-second background of yourself, and then how you came across this idea of doing this tour.
Sure. Well, thanks a lot for coming out today. Yeah, we did just get finished with our walk. My name is David, and I was born and raised here in Redondo Beach. And I worked as a journalist for over 20 years. I started with the Easy Reader when I was 15, worked a little for them after college. I moved away, and when I came back, I worked for the Daily Breeze for about 5 years. And during that time, I always knew a lot about Redondo history, but I learned more about it during that time. And then recently I went on a trip with my mother, and we were doing a lot of historical walking tours. So I thought, why don't I design one for Redondo Beach? So I put out a self-guided audio tour through an app called Voice Map. And you can get that on your iPhone or Android and download the tour and take it on your own. And then I'm also doing some of these live in-person tours that we just did today. So it goes from here, we're sitting here at Moonstone Park in King Harbor Marina, and it's 1.5 miles to Veterans Park. Yeah.
It was, as we were going through all these areas, you brought up some really good points about the history, who owned this place. Henry Huntington, actually, I didn't know Henry Huntington owned the whole area here,
Yeah.
Redondo Beach.
Yeah.
Right? You
Yeah.
talked about that red car line. We're talking about the Green Line extension up in Hawthorne, and that actually, Hawthorne Boulevard, and that actually came down to here as well. So this old Salt Lake, you were saying on the tour, had a power plant here from 1917.
1897 was the first steam plant at that location, and that was used to power the electric streetcar. Because that was about the only thing that they really used electricity for in those days before they had household current. And then by 1907, they sold it. Southern California Edison bought the plant, and they started using electricity for more things. It's hard to imagine that we had an electric streetcar that went all over Los Angeles, all the way here to downtown. That was the Pacific Electric, and the cars they called the red car lines. And that was Huntington. That was Henry Huntington's baby. As he bought the Los Angeles and the Redondo Railway in 1905, and then in 1907 they merged to become Pacific Electric. And that's how he promoted Redondo Beach, built the line here, bought almost the entire town.
Wow.
And then he's the one that built the pavilion, the casino, and the plunge that were right at the base of what's today the Horseshoe Pier, or the Endless Pier.
Yep.
And those were the big iconic buildings of the day. And by 1910, Huntington sold his entire interest. So he only owned it for 5 years.
Wow.
But did so much to promote the city and really, bring it, improve its reputation and draw a lot of visitors. So that was like a heyday period.
I learned that looking at the red car history, the streetcar line, it wasn't about, that was always a money loser, but it was used to do development in Redondo, along the lines. And you brought up a good point about how he did development in Redondo, and he made his destination spot. You go over all this history, and I mean, that right there, we could probably spend an hour talking about the history. How did you cut out things and leave things in? Like, I noticed, I walking along and I like, oh yeah, what this and that, right?
Yeah, we got off on some different stuff too, which is fine. There's a lot of history here. Well, really, first off, I was limited by the location, so I wanted to just focus on the waterfront. So like stuff about like the Dominguez family, I don't get into just because it's not here in the waterfront. I mean, lots of rich history, of course. So that was one limiting factor, and then also the time period. So I really wanted to focus on 1890 to about 1915 or 1920. I have some other stuff, like I talked a little bit about the Native American stuff, and then some of the storms and the harbor creation in the 50s and 60s, but most of our history, and really the richest history in Redondo, is from 1890 to about 1910, 1915. And that's really because those are the periods that Redondo was the preferred shipping port for LA. So that's when you had the most activity. And then you had these steamers that were bringing passengers from only about 1909 to maybe 1911, 1912. It was only a short period where they had these steamers coming from Seattle and San Francisco. And then the Hotel Redondo was torn down in 1925.
Right.
So much of Redondo changed during that period.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting that you concentrated in that portion. It's true. So much. We were destination. We were shipping port, tourism. Then we still had the harbor, and it seemed like there was a little bit of a quiet period between the 20s and 30s to really the 50s and 60s when they started building, and they built the harbor here. Cecil King came through, and he was a congressman up in PV, and said, "I want to build a harbor." He built the harbor with federal funds. So that's when they got the actual harbor going.
1956 is when they got the funding and actually started dredging. They didn't finish the harbor for another 10 years until 1966. Yeah, so it was a lot of construction during that period. Yeah, I think I see it that way too. I don't have a whole lot of background on the 20s and 30s, but we were mentioning the gambling barge off the coast. That was
30s
big.
and 40s,
Yeah. So there's all kinds of crazy stuff that happened during that period. And then the music history in Hermosa Beach. Actually, a friend of mine, Adam, I'm going to pronounce his name wrong, but Melanovi, I think his name.
Okay.
He designed a walking tour in Hermosa Beach.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's very interesting.
So tell me about this walking tour real quick, because at first the concept started as a walking tour, and audio tour, audio tour online. Self-guided audio tour, right?
Which still exists.
Yeah, and you still have it, right? $10 and
it just launched, so
right. But I mean, I guess we're thinking about this. This has been such a huge success with the walking tour through here. I think, oh wow,
in person,
right? So, tell us real quick. Can you do these walking audio tours somewhere else? And maybe, quick second, do you think maybe we have a idea here to do a walking tour and later on, like for other parts or the city, or expand it every weekend different?
Possibly, yeah.
So yeah, audio tour. Can you do these audio tours somewhere else?
Another location? Yeah, I mean, on VoiceMap they have lots of different places. We don't have any others in Redondo.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, if anyone wants to go for it, you can do a PV one. That'd be maybe a driving tour in PV. The Hermosa one really focuses a lot on the musical history. Which I think is really interesting. A lot of the early jazz. Hermosa had a very vibrant jazz scene in the 20s and 30s.
Right.
A number of different clubs. Not in addition to the Lighthouse, they had a lot of other clubs that were real popular.
I never thought about that. It's true. Yeah.
But other places in Redondo, I don't know. It's kind of tough. There's, the Native American history. Malaga Cove, I didn't know this until recently, that's where the Chowigna had their main village, in Malaga Cove.
Old cemetery up there.
7,000 years ago. And the Cabrillo expedition is what discovered that in 1542. That was the first Spanish that came and explored the area.
Wow.
So they found artifacts at Malaga Cove.
Wow.
What else is fun is to go to the Dominguez Ranch out in Carson. Yep. That's got a lot of interesting history, and that covers all the Dominguez family. That was the original Spanish land grant.
Yep.
That was given to them.
And then they broke it up, Rancho San Pedro, which is actually along 190th right here, going all the way south. Speaking of Dominguez, we have Dominguez Park, the old historic library there. One thing we brought up on our walk here was the signs. Those signs are really cool.
Oh,
historic signs, path of history.
I
think the city could really do something with getting that organized, these different spots, and maybe create correlation.
Yeah. A lot of our tour ended up hitting up some of those plaques and things, so it made a nice addition because you have the photographs there. No, I really like that. I think those are nice. It's nice to remember history. I think it's important to know what was here before and the promise of our harbor.
Right.
In those days they really had a lot of pride in the architecture and the buildings that they put up. It had a lot of symbolism. That's why they built big, beautiful schools, because they cared about education. That's why your government buildings are big and beautiful. And that's how they built the plunge and the pavilion and all that stuff. And so I hope that, our future plans for our waterfront could be something that everyone's proud of.
Yeah, I think so. I definitely think, I know so. To that point, high school was built really big in Grand.
And, beautiful high school.
Beautiful high school. Yeah, we can do some cool things in Redondo. I mean, there's as we were walking back, there's so much energy here and so much opportunity in here in the harbor, and I think this is what the tour here really shows the history, big history of what's happened, and why it's such a central piece of the South Bay.
And Los Angeles.
And Los
history.
Angeles, yeah.
Because without Redondo Beach, there really wouldn't be a Los Angeles. It really was the port that made it possible to build LA.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Well, that's cool, David.
Yeah,
Thank you
well,
for
thanks.
taking the time, man. I appreciate it, and I will definitely be promoting this a lot more.
Thank you.
And I'd love to see some more tours, audio tours.
Yeah.
And I think you should definitely move forward with trying to do this as a walking tour once a month or something, and get the tourists on board. Because as we walked through the harbor, it was like, there's so many tourists here. They're not taking advantage of any of this stuff.
Yeah, we are a tourist destination. So to find more about the tour, it's on Voice Map, which is an app, and then also you can join my Facebook page. You can find it at Walking Tour Historical Redondo Beach. And if you like the page, then I will notify you when I'll do another tour.
Awesome.
Thanks so much, Nils.
Thanks, David. Appreciate it, dude. I'll
Yeah.
talk to you.
All right.